I mean, I still think that it's still higher than the average number of women entrepreneurs in other industries, right? So healthcare has more, biotech and healthcare I think has slightly more, and I think that's because of the number of people who also get into the space, right? So I think one is the influx of the numbers at the level at which you start coming out. In the next 5 to 10 years, you'll see a little, there'll be changes, right? Just like you saw changes in the banking industry, where today there are lots of women CEOs in banking industry. I think you'll start seeing that happen in healthcare as well. See, when you looked at the choices you make at high school and the choices you make at when you are entering college, one of the things was that engineering was for males. And doctors are for women, right? I mean, that was a normal thing to think about. When a lot of times when you're a woman, you thought about doctors, you thought about this thing, or you thought about arts or something else. If you're a guy, I'm generalizing, of course. Then you thought about commerce or you thought about engineering. Right? So I'm saying that those are inbuilt expectations of a society. And I think because of that, there are more women who were found in biotech or life sciences and healthcare and became doctors, because it's considered to be a much more easier thing to do. So I think one is that, and it started to happen, right? One is the change in the funding. So most of the, for earlier you found that it was not that there weren't enough women entrepreneurs. They were, but they were small scale. Right? And then when you're looking at really going to the next level, I think you have to compete with the rest of the people, which means that you have to get enough funding, enough, being able to create those partnerships and so on. And I think so that has started to change. I think what we saw this year was that quite a few women were funded this year. And I think that will make a change in terms of not so many in healthcare, but I'm saying overall, there have been women entrepreneurs who have been funded, right? The second is the level of the kind of people who are now getting into the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and that is changing. So the number of women who are getting in are higher than they were in the past. So if you look at the numbers from that perspective, I think you will see that change happen. It's not that. See, it's what happens is, I think, and it's not about women or male. It's about finding people that you're comfortable with, right? So what I mean is that, so for instance, and I take this example of our own company. When we started Mapmygenome, we had large number of women, right? And when you had large number of women, when you start to interview more people, you start to get more people like yourself. So that's a bias that is inherent in us. So unless you do an intervention, that doesn't change. So now we are at 50-50. Right? And it's a great thing. Having that 50-50 balance and having diverse people is a great thing. But when you leave it to people, the normal tendency is to get more people like themselves. So that is a human bias, which I think is an unconscious bias for a lot of people. So in Mapmygenome, we have this product called Genome Patri, which is like, like you have a Janam Patri for like a horoscope for your health and wealth and your prosperity. I think similarly, we have looked at genetic analysis of your saliva or your blood sample to be able to understand what you're predisposed to, what makes you who you are. So how do you get to know yourself, right? What drugs will work for you? What are you likely to be more prone to high cholesterol, likely to be a sprinter, and those kind of things. So we took all of that. And so the first thing that the consumer gets is a report, which is about a 100-page report, right? The second thing what we're doing is then saying what is your health history and what's your family history and your lifestyle. And we correlate the two. And then we are giving them a one-on-one counseling session. So there's a genetic counseling session where we tell them that, based on your genetic risk, this is a likelihood of increasing or decreasing based on your family history or your health or your lifestyle. And then we give them recommendations. So then they get a secondary recommendation report. So that is a fairly new thing, because earlier we were not doing that. And then we also do infectious diseases. So we have diagnostic tests for tuberculosis, and we're going to add tests for dengue and other things. In the next 3 years, we want to get to 100,000 samples. We want to also be able to impact 100 million lives by 2030.